Gosh, so nice to see you live. Not taking that for granted after yesterday. In case you missed yesterday's intervention, there are available copies over on my YouTube channel, so check that out. Yep, got caught up in the Facebook going down yesterday. I'm broadcasting with a tool called StreamYard to multiple platforms, and because one was down, boy, it took the whole system down. So very glad to be back with you today. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Hang on just 1 second here. Let's see. There we go. Welcome. And we're going to talk about career branding today. Love to talk about career branding, but a lot of times we don't know really what that means. What's my career brand? How do I manage it? Well, of course, it's everything from this. If I walked in here in my cardio exercise gear, you wouldn't take my advice. You have to think about everything that creates your brand, including what you say about yourself. But also then we have to take a close look at how we tell that story across our resume, across our LinkedIn profile. So welcome to today. It's building your career brand with LinkedIn and how to use it as, in your job search. I'm going to take you into how your LinkedIn profile, if it's representing your career brand correctly, needs to become this three-dimensional sales brochure, all about you that will naturally drive them to one singular conclusion. My gosh, if I hire, work with, or buy from this individual, best business decision I'm going to make today. So let's think from that standpoint. Now, most of us have a problem. Most of us are not Kardashians. And I mean that really in the best way, but we suffer from something called modesty and humility. By the way, modesty and humility, two great traits that are wonderful for all the other aspects of our life. All nurture it, grow it in those fields, but not for job search, not for career. In these two areas, the modesty and humility, even though it's maybe our nature, it works against us. We're going to have to find the courage to better manage our career brand and to put our story out there because you built it, you earned it, and you need to utilize it. Let's jump in to today. Well, you are a product too. There's no way around that. When a company hires you, they're really buying a product or they're buying your time and talents. We get that. So do you want to be the store brand? The one that's on the shelf with a little bit less space than normal. Maybe the label coloring is a little bit off. The taste is a little bit off, very close, a little bit off. Price, very good on the price. You want to be that store brand, or would you like to be the national brand, the Kellogg's, the Folgers, the Coca-Cola, whatever it is that you respond to? Which one would you rather be, and which one is going to draw the higher price? We have to think about that as we begin to stage and set our product. How should it be put on stage? How should it be lit properly from camera? What accoutrements should be around it that help the story move forward? Really, why are you interesting? What makes you tick? This often confuses folks because whether we're talking resume or LinkedIn, and today's really LinkedIn, how are you interesting and what makes you tick? Well, I'm very interesting and a lot of things make me tick, but they don't have to do with what I do professionally. Okay. But we are three-dimensional real human beings. So you can tell a multifaceted story where the career piece takes the center stage, but those interesting things that surround you and set the mood, set the interest level, engagement level, all of that probably has to do with these things. Now, if they don't have to do with what you do professionally, my interesting and tick answer is on my Instagram. Depending on how we're using our Instagram and how that might relate to our field, I have people in creative that use their Instagram as an inspiration channel. Here's what catches my eye. Here is not necessarily a demonstration of their work, sometimes, but usually it's more foundational. This is behind the eye. This is behind the drive. What I use my Instagram for is really to answer this question. Why are you interesting? What makes you tick? Well, I have enough pieces out there about my credibility in what I do as a career coach and resume writer and LinkedIn profile redeveloper and all those things. There's enough out there about that. But still, hiring a career coach is the same thing as a buying decision or a hiring decision. Back to, not only do I want you to be the right expert and capable and qualified, let me get a little bit of drink here, but also I want to get you. What are you about? My Instagram if you happen to look at it, it's a drop down on my SelfRecruiter website, drop down menu. You see all sorts of things. You see me hiking up the Hudson Valley, climbing Yosemite out in California, up to the top of Half Dome. It's like, yes, make it to the top of Half Dome. Nothing's really going to stop you after that, because it's a very scary challenge. The more we take on, the more we realize what's possible. Or me taking on other challenges, it begins to answer this question: who are you? What drives you? This is part of taking control of the discussion, even about our professional life, because they want to know the whole person. If they were to hire you, or if I were to hire you, do you realize I would have to spend my waking life with you? I'd have to spend more time with you than my loved ones. That's why we want to get you. That's why we want you to be interesting. Yes, be capable and qualified. But I'd like you to be interesting. I'd like to know what makes you tick, because I'm going to be spending that time with you. This is how you begin to influence people. This does require confidence in your story. Now, many of us, when we get into interview or we get into talking about how we contributed, confidence level can drop. Absolutely. So being judged and everything else. This is about allowing yourself permission. In reality, I'm shy and introverted, no matter what people see or believe. That's really who I am, but how do I get to this person? Confidence in what I bring to the table professionally, and a little bit of letting them peek behind the curtain to see what I'm all about, reading, doing, sharing, attending, or why I'm interesting and what makes me tick. This is influencing the other people to a conclusion. Now, for clarity, let's talk resume for a second and compare that to LinkedIn. In my view, and everything I'm teaching you today is my opinion. You should take it with a grain of salt, probably pitch it over the shoulder for a little bit of luck. Okay. Resume is either about catching interest, piquing interest, creating excitement and urgency. Oh, get him in here. Get him on the phone. I have to speak with him. I don't even know what it is yet, but there's something I'm reacting to here. That's the resume's job, and you do it by distilling the entire background down to the essence and value of your career onto a single sheet of paper. That takes tremendous editing. Because you know what? You lived it. We all want to, get this in there, get that in there. No, they'll love this too. That's the everything and the kitchen sink approach. That's not really going to work. It dilutes your story down to the essence and value of your career. LinkedIn is, in my view, the polar opposite of that. It's the de facto social website for our work life. It's our networking in the virtual world. It's really the place where we build out our professional shingle, our career story. Really, you're controlling every single word of the narration, so there shouldn't be shyness. So maybe a little bit of the modesty, humility piece that we have to give yourself permission to be beyond. But LinkedIn is an amazing place to take control and harness how people think of you professionally. And it has a few tools on the back end that are going to help you. Now, a business person thinks of LinkedIn like this automatically: communications, research, marketing, advertising platform. Fantastic. Of course, that's what it is also. I want you to think of LinkedIn this way. You have a career brand to manage forevermore. Not going to have one more job. It's one more job, and after that, one more job, and after that, one more job. The sooner you begin to manage your career branding properly and effectively, every single one of those changes gets easier, and also the opportunities that open up to you become different. On the back end of LinkedIn, you're looking at a three-dimensional network. Oh, I'm a happy guy down in the corner connected to another happy guy, happy person next to me. Great, we're both happy, fantastic. But it's not really about your connections, no matter how near and dear to my heart, but it's not really about those folks. No matter what those connections do to their setting, every one of their connections are also in John's pool. Now, let's be clear, they are not my connections, but they're in my searchable pool, just like everybody jumping into the swimming pool. And those other connections, no matter what they do to their settings, every one of their connections are also in John's pool. Still not connected to John, but they're in John's pool. I get a 3-level network of information that I can see everything about, and I can potentially influence those people. Build your correct network, and in your 3-level pool will be everybody from your industry, everybody that you can influence. In case you haven't seen me before, John Crant, author, career coach, and speaker. resume and LinkedIn guru as well. So my gosh, if your career brand is not getting the attention it needs, if it is not elevated to the right level, I know exactly who you should work with and for that can elevate this. Whether I'm doing it across the resume or LinkedIn profile or really helping my clients navigate their interview process, it is about being able to separate yourself emotionally from all of this wonderful content that is your background story, and then begin to think like a chess game. How do I put certain pieces together, make certain moves that somehow influence how people think? Now, as a recruiter, I had 3 or 4 years in direct recruiting on a desk. That's traditional headhunter, having to go into the competitor company, find the superstar, lure them out. Then I spent about 3.5 years after that as the national trainer. So we had a 100 office recruiting system. Everybody would come into my 90-day program to really teach them how hiring really works. It doesn't work the way people think it works. And then, of course, I ended up being VP over all 100 offices. That's about 7 or 8 total years in outside recruitment before moving into what I do now, which is for the last 10, 12 years working directly with clients, elevating their career brand, giving talks to all sorts of audiences, including the New York Public Library, the New York State Department of Labor, Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Business Program, even Harvard Business School Club of New York City. All these places that I speak to and all these audiences are after one thing: how do I change the equation? How do I make my life easier in my career and in my job search? Of course, my book's a pretty good resource. It's a very good roadmap, by the way, to navigate, and it'll help you with a lot of different things. I'll leave that to your own devices to take a look at over on Amazon or over my website. Over on my website, SelfRecruiter.com, halfway down the page is a very special version of this lecture where you can see me large, see the slides large, change it, and really use it as a nice start and stop tutorial as you build out a much more effective LinkedIn profile. Last set of resources before we jump in. On my LinkedIn profile itself, click on my articles and you'll get to a number of articles that will really help you in your job search. So let's just face the music. Don't let somebody else think for yourself. I live at Grand Street and FDR. So in a normal world, which is not, in a normal world, I get into Chinatown very early in the morning sometimes, 8 o'clock in the morning. If you've not been to Chinatown at 8 o'clock in the morning, I highly suggest a trip. You will see things that you never imagined. Like most people, I need to get where I'm going, lead, follow, get out of the way, a million things in my head. I look up and suddenly I see this entire hog walking down the street on top of someone's shoulder. I'm like, I don't know if you've seen one of those things in real life. A lot of bacon on that thing, really big. First thought is, why isn't this guy toppling over? But he was a pretty stout guy, so I get that. This was on his shirt. Oh, no doubt that hog caught my attention, but boy, this has never left my brain. Don't let somebody else think for yourself. We have to put down that phone, put down that tablet, put down whatever it is we're holding, whatever the distraction is. We have to get out of the back seat and get behind the wheel, or you're not likely to get to the destination you're thinking about. So let's start with a very, very open mind. What is your story? Boy, that comes up with some problems, doesn't it? We think of story as something not being truthful. Oh, you have to be absolutely truthful. But I grew up Catholic, and there's a difference between being truthful and being confessional. I know all about both sides of that. Your job is not to be confessional. Your job is to say everything that is absolutely letter true while shaping the story the way you'd like. So it's still true, but perception is something that's movable. When you think about your story, absolutely be capable and qualified, but that's not really why I'm going to hire you. I wouldn't hire anybody that I didn't think was capable or qualified. I actually wouldn't even interview anybody I did not believe to be capable and qualified. So that itself is not why I'm hiring you. Anybody I would hire has to have that. That almost doesn't exist, except it has to. Why are you interesting? What makes you tick? If I get stuck in the airport for 4 hours with you, am I going to want to end my life? A lot of managers in recruiting, a lot of the people I placed individuals with would have that. A lot of them worked in sales. So the sales manager would have the airport test. John, would they pass the airport test? What? If I get stuck in the airport with them for 4 hours, am I going to want to kill myself? Well, I hope not. But boy, it drives home the point. Why are you interesting? What makes you tick? How will I get you? Your LinkedIn and recreating your career brand on LinkedIn, that's moving the entire brand into the digital world. So yes, we're talking about LinkedIn, but we're going to mention Twitter and Instagram and really any other platform that you're considering for career. Use what I'm teaching you on LinkedIn and transfer what is applicable to those other platforms. Why social media matters, besides destroying society. Yes, it's where people are. It's where connections are. It's where if you can get people to talk about you, that is like a firestorm that can do a lot of amazing things or terrible things if it's the wrong direction. Look at the second from the bottom here. Proper use of social media in our career, in our job search. This is how you stay on the top of people's minds while you seemingly really have no contact with them. Always aware of you, always keeping track of you, always getting an impression. Small changes change everything. So why will you get hired if we're capable and qualified? Of course, that has to be there. Number one above everything in the whole world is chemistry, and number two below that is confidence. These two are above everything else. That's before your credentialing, the background, what you actually produced, who you've worked for, assuming we're capable and qualified. So we have to think about this. It's back to the interesting. What makes you tick? What drives you? How will they get you? So let me just share a few pics from my Instagram. I promised you there was nothing professional on my Instagram. This is me hiking all over the place. This is me involved, me taking on challenge of different sorts. There's some emotional challenge coming up here too, because I lost one of my sisters on 9/11, and some of those photos are in here. But everything here, whether it be physical or emotional, is about challenge, which directly connects to what I do professionally. Here I am, a year and a half ago, or I guess it's 2 years ago now, 2 years ago, a few weeks ago, almost dying out in the California desert at 108 degrees, doing a hike that was on my bucket list. Well, it nearly became the end of my bucket list, making a wrong turn at 108 degrees. The only two people crazy enough to go on this hike that they warned, don't go in July and August. Only day I'm there. It's my bucket list. But we made a wrong turn while we're up on top of the plateau, and that added 2 extra miles in the beating sun, and failed to calculate that my body would not be able to cool itself beyond my comprehension. I don't get it. I'm like, oh, well, I certainly get it now, and barely made it back to the car and civilization, which I'm so glad I did. I am here. There, you got a good sense of what drives me, what makes me tick beyond the professional. That's the concept of small changes changing everything, letting people really take a little peek into the window. But don't let somebody else think for yourself. Take control of the discussion, and you decide how you want them to think about your product. All of this together is how you influence people. Now, here is the major challenge and the major mistake people make. Oh, I want to be perfect. I want to be perfect, cookie cutter perfect. Okay, we can make you cookie cutter perfect, but if you're cookie cutter perfect, you're going to get less money. I'm going to get less money for being perfect? Yes. Because if you're cookie cutter perfect interchangeable, I'll take number 3. No, number 3, I'm paying you less money. No, you don't want less money? Okay, number 2, number 5, number 10. Doesn't matter which one I'm taking. I'm taking one of those interchangeable folks, and I'm paying them less money. Somebody here will take less money. If you're only the cookie cutter interchangeable, that's what happens to you. You have to somehow achieve the balance of not only being cookie cutter interchangeable, but somehow that person that steps out of line is exceptional, different in some way. And the personal branding elements that we use on LinkedIn is how you're going to separate yourself out. This requires a paradigm shift in storytelling, a metamorphosis. We have to shed that skin and be ready to become the new iteration of whatever we might be. It's our job to teach them how to select us. I talk a lot about this in the interview intervention lecture, but really when you're building out your LinkedIn profile, which should be a 3-dimensional sales brochure all about you, you have to think of this, because everything you put together on the profile should be teaching them how to select you as the very best individual. So back to resume and LinkedIn and just comparing these two. The resume is about the catching or piquing interest. LinkedIn, to me, should be the polar opposite. Now, I should also tell something else to make that make sense. In terms of resume, it's a single sheet of paper in all cases, or we just don't know how to edit and tell a story. I don't care how extensive the background is, it fits on a single sheet of paper quite impressively. Or you have too much content. You have content diluting your story. Polar opposite to that is, how do I take that skeletal system, the backbone, over to LinkedIn and then add back all the layers of flesh, not the dull stuff, but the interesting parts, until it becomes this full three-dimensional sales brochure about you that they just can't resist. And they already have concluded that you are the very best. They must speak with this person, get them in here, get them on the phone. More clarity, the essence and value of your career on a single sheet of paper, and LinkedIn becoming this three-dimensional sales brochure, driving them to that singular conclusion. That is what's really going to essentially close the deal or make the case for you. Now, even though we're on LinkedIn, let me just leave you with the thoughts on a contact line for your resume, because it's how they're going to arrive at your LinkedIn in many cases. Contact lines should be a single line, not stacked up like a layer cake. That doesn't really make sense to eat up valuable real estate on a single page resume. So on that single line, you have two spots that are the prime spots, all the way to the left, all the way to the right. We're in a Western world. That means we consume top to bottom, left to right. Whatever is on the right is the easiest thing to get to. Cell phone is on the right. Right there it is. Right there. There it is. You're holding my resume. You must want to speak with me. Pick up the phone and call me. Almost there. Almost there. Not quite convinced. Almost there. Second easiest thing to get to is my LinkedIn link right on the left. Click on that, and suddenly, boom, they're on your sales brochure, which should close the deal, close the rest of whatever might be missing. Now, in today's world, we're typically worried about this whole remote thing. If you've been working in the last year and a half and you're in a white collar role, 60-70% of those have all gone remote. As strongly as they may try to get those back into a non-remote, we're not quite there yet. Not in my view. And I read a lot of data, not just the inflammatory stuff. It's really all data driven. I think we've got some time left. I think we have, I hate to say, I think we have another year or more of this before we're really back to what seems to be normal. Maybe even longer than that. Who knows? May never go back to what it was, and may be a hybrid. So working remotely becomes very important. If you don't have that in your history, if you can't just point to it, look at that remote contribution. You're going to have to think about how you might have done remote activities. Not the same thing, but remote activities like you see on screen, or maybe you've been a speaker, maybe you've done conferences, spoken at conferences or webinars or conference calls. All of that is a demonstration of ability to be effective remotely. You need to shift how you tell that story. Now, in LinkedIn, on the how to use it as an effective tool in job search, I'm going to show you how I would use LinkedIn to go after and land a job. But let's reorg our framework for what actual job search is. So many people, they sit on the internet looking at job postings, and they're all day, I'm all day on the computer looking at job postings, and they somehow think that is job search. In my view, that is pure tragedy. It's tragedy because these individuals don't understand that they're completely wasting 50% of their time. Your time is the only resource that you have as a job seeker. It's the only resource. That's the only one there is. The background, you already built that. That exists. The time is the resource you have now. And so if you're putting all of your resources into looking for job postings, and you have failed to come to the conclusion or understand that half of all job postings are not real based on how those advertising spots are sold, did all the national contracts for all or 100 office system, I can tell you, company of any size, they only buy their job postings one time per year, once. Only way you ever get a good deal. Well, how many do we think we could use? You take that number to your sales rep, you do a little horse trading, sign that contract. Those are use them or lose them in 12 months. No idea 6 months or up to a year ago what they're hiring today. And very quickly that becomes this, oh, we better post things we may hire someday. Have to use up those advertising spots. That ends up with about half of all job postings not being real. To me, let's change everything. Let's go after a list of organizations and companies. Work backward like a detective, devising the steps needed. Discover the decision makers. Well, I'll teach you that actually in today's lecture, how to find those folks. Their job, discovering decision makers. Those decision makers, their job is to object to you. Overcome the objections, get a meeting, dazzle them, have them either give you the job or create a job. Now, traditional networking, we don't usually do too well at it. Oh yeah, have a networking event I have to go to tonight. Hope they're serving something cold. Probably won't be coffee. My gosh. And we go through this and we go, yeah, I went there. I gave up my card. Wow, it's like the blood is draining right out of us. These don't work very well because we don't understand networking. In networking, you are there to be the most interested person in the room. Oh, gosh, Jack, James, oh, why are you here today? Oh, how'd you get into that? Oh, that's so interesting. Now, do you know Jane? Oh, Jane, meet Jack here. No, what is it that you do? Oh, gosh, no, where do you work? Oh, what's it like over there? Be that person. 5, 6 basic innocuous questions to lure people up onto the soapbox, let them talk all about themselves, their companies, the industry, the challenges. Information dump. You are there as a sponge. And yes, occasionally when they run out of oxygen, they're going to turn to you and go, oh, John, what about you? Oh, well, since you're listening, I'll give you a little bit of a pitch. Traditional networking kind of breaks down very, very quickly. Couple bad networking events, we tend to not go to the next ones. I want you to think about using LinkedIn to change this whole equation, to really get away from the usual customer expected and do things in the opposite direction. Think about networking. It's really not as easy as just getting in the room, exchanging cards. If it was, we'd all go that way. That's a rut. Let's break that cycle and now move the entire process over to LinkedIn. That's going to get us away from these unhappy responses that we feel. So change the equation of diminishing returns simply by changing the rules. Now, I don't think you agreed to these rules. Well, maybe some fine print somewhere. Maybe when you signed up for LinkedIn. It's kind of like that fine print on those little credit card offers. You know that micro fine print, like amazingly. You read all that stuff too, right? Yeah, me too. Unconventional thinking, creative interpretation, and moments of clarity, these light bulb moments connecting the dots. That's how we have to rewire our brain, rewire our thought process. So as we begin to think about LinkedIn in a new way, first major question is, whom should I network with or whom should I connect with? Well, let's just get right to it. Everyone. There is no bad connection. I don't care if you're in India, Russia, China. I don't care if you're in janitorial services. None of it matters because it's not actually about you. Oh, connection, near and dear to my heart, but it's not really about you. It's about the 2 or 3 layers behind you that I own forever. So if I could be connected to everyone, I certainly would. I hope you're thinking of all the places where you're standing around and waiting and potentially being able to network, or even when life begins to get back to normal just a little bit, which seems to like it has for some, but let's not move too quickly. Those are all places where we could strike up opportunity or conversation. Link with as many people as possible to wrap up this first part. Now, let's show you 2 techniques. Then I'm going to show you how to optimize your LinkedIn profile for your career brand. How do we elevate our career brand with the right LinkedIn profile? So first 2 techniques I'd like to show you is really about how to utilize this vast network you are building. LinkedIn really doesn't tell you much about that end of it. These are recruiter techniques. I use them every day as a recruiter. This first one is called a 1 back, 1 forward. I think you'll know why in just a moment. We're going to go in and search for someone that's just like you in some way, shape, or form. Not every way, shape, or form, some way, shape, or form. Search, and I'm looking for people that made 1 job move forward since you are identical. By default, they'll have 1 back. That's 1 back, 1 forward. Gather them all together, and very quickly, well, let's give you an example. Let's imagine you worked at Coca-Cola as a quality manager until yesterday or last week or whatever it might be. And now we're looking for new opportunities. So you do this, and you, even on the free version of LinkedIn, which is the only one I use, show me people that used to be Coca-Cola quality managers. And now I look for people that have made 1 job move forward. And I look 1 back, 1 forward, and heartbreak is what I feel first. 7-Up, Pepsi Cola, RC Cola. John, I could have written that list myself. Well, yes, that part of the list you should have written yourself right now. And then if you look around at the rest, you can see all these food and beverage companies you've never heard of. There's like 1 million of them. Every one statistically perfect to hire you. They hired your duplicate. Go and introduce yourself to those companies. And if they have a need, my gosh, you're going to find yourself on the way to getting a job. Next technique is a 1, 2, 3 forward technique. This is great if you're just out of school and beginning your career. Also great if you find yourself mid-career and suddenly go, I'd like to do something different. Oh, I'm too far along my track. How do I do it? Technique works for both. A little more complex. I have a real example to show you. So behind the scenes, what we're looking for is we're going to do the same type of search for someone just like you in some way, shape, or form. Not every way, shape, or form. And now yes, it's harder homework. We have to dig to find 3 moves forward. Yeah, that's a harder search. It takes more brain power. Problem solving. Don't let somebody else think for yourself. Gather them all together. The point here is to not reinvent the wheel. The wheel is a wonderful invention, but it's already been invented. I don't have to bash my head against the concrete to reinvent the wheel. I just have to observe how a wheel works and how a wheel is invented, and I can make a wheel. So here we're trying to learn how to follow someone down their career path, one that was not really in our brains when we started. So I had a gal call me up from Atlanta a few years back, and she says, I think I need a career coach. I think I don't have a career. I'm like, oh, well, that's a little harsh. Let's see if we can help you. Send me your stuff. Let's take a look. Sends me their stuff. And 3 or 4 years out of school, done a little of this, a little of that. Now she's managing a health club. By the way, nothing wrong with managing a health club. Doesn't want to do it. Looking for a career. I don't know how to find a career. I'm like, oh, well, I have a brainstorming idea. Why don't we take a look at this? Maybe we can find what is the right career, not just a career, the right career for you. So I said, let's go find people that are just like you. We go into LinkedIn. Now, my client, this person went to Clark Atlanta University. I said, well, you're just in the workforce. No, I've been working 3 years. I'm like, well, welcome. There's really nothing here. Let's go back to the major asset I see, which is the education. You went to Clark Atlanta University. Let's pull up all the people that went to Clark Atlanta University. She studied mass media through keyword search. All these people studied mass media. And through the magic of search at the time that I did it, they were all 3, 4, 5 years out of school at that point. Essentially, they had the same exact asset with the same length of time. What did they do with it? And could we learn something? I said, so look around. Doesn't matter where they're located. What do you like? Talk to me. Events. I'd love to work in events. Oh, events at Warner Brothers. Oh, that looks interesting. It's like, oh, I'd love to be a membership director. Oh, recruiter. I'd like to help people. I said, well, we'll come back to that one. Let's look up here at Trish here. My gosh, how did Trish become this membership director for this nonprofit, this Chamber of Commerce? How did she do it? What do you think her first job was? Membership associate. And her second job, membership manager. And voila, 3 steps in, she's membership director. So here's my client over on the right, Tahita. Didn't even know what she's looking for. I go, it's going to be a nonprofit or foundation. A lot of those around Atlanta, so you have a great target. Well, I don't even know what job I'm after. Member services. I don't know what that is. I don't either, but apparently they're going to love your background. Let's go sell you. Let's get the story going. And finds herself on her first step toward her 3-step career goal. Member services at the Georgia Pharmacy Association. Now, I've been telling this story for a long time. I have to update it. She's moved up to manager of member services and database, and finally up to director of membership operations, all the way to her career goal that she had never imagined or heard of before our conversation. This is what you can learn from others. Now, imagine you were that Coca-Cola quality manager that woke up and said, I'm so done with sugary soda, Now what? It's all I have in my background. Same technique. We do the same technique. And yes, vast majority are going to break your heart, all in food and beverage, all these 3 moves. But then some of them wildly will spiral out into various industries. You're like, how'd they do it? How did they do it? I don't know. But why don't we simply follow them? There's something about those companies and your background, the training, the exposure to customers, something those companies like. Go knock on the door, go introduce yourself to those organizations. They hired your duplicate. There's something about you they're going to respond to. Good way to begin to think about taking control. Perception is reality in the modern world. We have to manage perception because we're this product. We have to get how they think about this product. How do you want them to think about this product? Then we're going to have to take those changes across all of our branding materials that help separate us out from others. reassure that we're capable and qualified, but always separating ourselves out from others, realizing these small little things fix everything. Here's a few shares of mine on LinkedIn. This is the social media aspect of LinkedIn. Now, there's both this lecture where I'll show you some of these, but I have a part 2 to this lecture called Career Evolution. If you don't want to wait for the next one, copy over on my YouTube channel. Career Evolution is really about when you have the right LinkedIn profile, positioning and selling you as a great selling tool, then how do you actually build and run a marketing campaign for yourself in your job search? That's the Career Evolution lecture. Some of these pictures come from that. Here I'm doing an event with Morgan Stanley, so I shared that group picture. Running out to one of my lectures, so I shared another picture there. Here, a couple years back, doing my online boot camp, and someone grabbed a shot of that. My father was a Catholic deacon, so I saw him in that pose all the time. I know he would have loved that shot, and he's still been alive. Here I am up at WHCR, Voice of Harlem Radio. Been up there 4 or 5 times now. Great place. It's 2 hours of drive time from 6 to 8 o'clock in the morning. My book made the picture. My coffee made it. Oh, I didn't make it into the picture. I'm still there. I tell you what, though, 2 hours of drive time when it's 100% off the cuff, and I'm very good off the cuff, phenomenal. Or I'm posting a few different articles that I've put out there. All that is available over on my LinkedIn, by the way. Or even the radio show host was sharing something on social media that included all the books from all the authors he had on. And so I'm re-sharing his content, a little bit of piggybacking. Running out the door to one more lecture, obviously pre-pandemic, and can't share the same darn photo all the time. So I shared this photo. Someone had been in the front audience when I showed my ridiculously long email signature. So embarrassing. It was like, end of the lecture, of course, I'm full of adrenaline and grease from being under the lights, and it's not a bad picture, but I hate this picture. You know why? It's my picture. That's why I hate it. I just like everybody else. I'm like, oh, where's my hair? Why is my nose so big? All those things we may not like about ourselves. Got to get past it. Suddenly ridiculous 1,500 views because I broke my branding ever so little of a bit to convey being a human being. Being a human being sells, by the way. And as you might have guessed from here, I do exert a lot of branding control, and full disclosure, my other half is a creative director. So yeah, I get a lot of help there. Branding your career. Well, this is about LinkedIn, but also if you'd like your career to go somewhere, if you'd like your job search to go somewhere, we also have to move that story over to Twitter. Almost lose it every time there. Not the 158 tweets over the weekend type thing. Do notice too that my 2 profiles, they work together, but they're slightly different from one another. It's not about putting a duplicate on every platform. It's slightly different, cohesive, working together with your brand. Then what I do is I simply turn around from my Twitter and I give LinkedIn my passwords and I allow them to post on my behalf. They have never posted when I didn't click the word post. So far I trust them. And you know what? I let it seamlessly flow not only to LinkedIn's audience, but out to the Twitterverse. And that's because a lot of companies have simply stopped posting jobs. They've solved the puzzle already. They realize they could, if they could think like a Sherlock Holmes, a little bit of a Sherlock Holmes, they could go to Twitter and search 4, 5, or 6 words to find the right individual. You give me any industry, any role, any level, give me a few minutes to think about it, and I can come up with the 4, 5, or 6 words to find the very best. I'm not the capable, qualified. It's like cat hair in your mouth. The best of the best of the best, no matter what the function is. How difficult is that? Not very difficult. Allow yourself to think for yourself. Well, if they were the best people do very specific things. They attend certain conferences. Are you attending that certain conference? Well, even if you can't afford it, you can certainly talk about it in advance. So excited for the such and such conference in Vegas in November that I won't be going to because I can't afford it. We'll leave that part out. So excited to have the link. Even a couple of weeks before that conference. Oh, can't wait to hear such and such speak. Well, I can't wait to hear them speak because I won't be there. Still letter true. You have to think about these things. Even during the conference itself, most of them offer an online segment. You can sign on during the online segment. You can pick up whatever your type of device is. You can angle it, shoot a little bit across your keyboard and right into the screen. And you can say, oh, compelling listening to so-and-so at the such and such conference in Vegas where I'm not actually there. Now you have a nice tied footprint to that conference that you said was the right one, the best people would attend. And the best people also would have shared a best practices technical white paper, which you can simply Google best practices technical white paper. What the heck is that? Somebody already wrote out the best way to do your job. You don't have to write this, by the way. There's millions of them out there. Just go grab one, good, bad, or ugly, doesn't matter either, because you need to share it with an opinion. What a great take on best practices for exactly what I do with a link. Not sure I agree with best practices for exactly what I do with a link. Couldn't disagree more with best practices for exactly what I do with a link. Good, bad, ugly doesn't really matter, but your opinion has to be there. Let that all flow across LinkedIn and Twitter, and you begin to feel the branding effect over time, the shift in perception about you. The whole goal is to really get them to filter through one simple question. Why is it going to be the best business decision if they choose to hire you? Get them to that conclusion, and very quickly they will hire you. That means, if possible, yeah, the story has to be about these types of things, or somehow affecting performance, being a deliverer. Let's go over to LinkedIn itself. This is how you're going to lift and elevate your career brand, beginning with the fact of what we look like when we look at other people. Promise to tell you how to use LinkedIn for job search itself. I'm a big believer, if you have come up with your list of companies, if you've stack ranked them, so you're investing your time wisely in the ones that are most attractive to you. The first company is ABC Company. Great. We're going to go in and reverse search ABC Company. I'm going to show you the screens coming up how to do that. I'm going to begin to rebuild the organizational chart. I've worked at companies like this before. I understand who's up the food chain from me, who's down the food chain, who I interface left and right. If you picked a nice, healthy mix of 25 to 30 people and open their profiles, you show up as having looked at them, just like these people. Oh, they've looked. 5 people have looked at you. Who's looked at me? Don't know if you've looked at this feature before, but you certainly will now. And once you start looking at it, you just can't stop. It's human nature. So down here on the bottom, not only is the free version, that means they're going to show me 5 people, essentially to try to lure me into, would you like to pay? I'll show you more. If you pay me, I'll show you more. Why don't you just look more frequently, and you can extrapolate what you see. So down on the bottom here, these are just 2 LinkedIn members that don't get it. There is no purpose to privacy on LinkedIn. This is your cultivated, curated garden of your career story, where you literally control every single word. Why would that be private? Oh, I know. We're not used to our story being public. Oh, they're going to judge me. Yes, they are. That's the way of the modern world. We have to get past that part, or we get left behind. Now, Jonathan here, I can tell you, first off, Jonathan does not work in the fashion or glamour industry. So I'm not sure about the glam shot. This is your product shot. What's the glam shot doing here? I don't know. Founder and owner. Oh my gosh. I hope there's nobody on this session today that's a founder or owner. Because if you've got that on your resume, good luck getting a job. We do not hire founders and owners. If you're looking for a new job again, we need to get out of our own way. That means you need to change this to principal. Means the exact same thing without the baggage. A founder and owner, they're not going to listen to me. I can't guide them. They're going to have their own ideas. But a principal is all those things, but someone I can manage and direct. And they take the responsibility too. So let's get our ego out of the way and change those things to principal. Deborah here. Now, good energy. I can imagine working on stressful projects. I can imagine lots of great stuff. Oh, I have a focus: textiles, lighting, fashion, interiors. But I wonder what Deborah's doing in textiles, lighting, fashion, interiors. Making progress, but I don't know if she's designing the textiles or setting the lighting or answering the phone. I don't know what she's doing, and I don't get the level of the delivery. Now, Brad here up at the top, corporate affairs and communications and global reputation management, government relations, crisis comms. And oh, look, I can contact that guy. And looks the part, of course. Full disclosure, of course, it's one of my clients. You have to look the part. As I mentioned early in the broadcast, I was out doing cardio just a little bit before this lecture, and I'm in tights and 5-finger shoes, and if I came on camera looking like that, you wouldn't take my advice. You have to be the product. You have to embody the product. So moving ahead and beginning to think of our LinkedIn profile as being the world right at our window. If you happen to be in retail and you had to get people into the store, well, first off, it'd be a very bad time for that. But if that was your job, what are you going to put in the window to lure people into the store? That's the same question as what are you going to put up in your main sections of your profile to draw them in? Why are you interesting? What makes you tick? So let's look at some first impressions. Very, very important, by the way, first impressions. They set the stage and either draw people in and begin to facilitate engagement, or they begin to put up a wall and questions. So let's cover a few different things here. Profile shot, absolutely. I wish I were looking at camera. Full disclosure, that's a few years ago. I keep my hair roughly about the same. Well, maybe a little too short up here to see, but roughly the same, so I can just keep using the same shot and I have the same energy. But it's a few years ago. A friend getting married at City Hall. And it was wonderful. Hundreds of people around, and they had just renovated City Hall, so it was really gorgeous marriage bureau place at that point. And somehow the photographer never posed us, kept moving around, and somehow got me isolated against these poles in the background and captured this joy over my friends getting married. That's what you're seeing, joy over my friends getting married. What do we need to see in the picture? Energy, enthusiasm, drive, passion, presence. Every bit of that is intangible. Can't really tell you what it is, but we can tell you when we see it. It's also a little tiny bit of the cat that ate the canary. This person looks like they're having a great day. Absolutely. That's the profile shot. Now, let me comment on the fact that I have type over top of my profile shot. You should not have type over top of your profile shot unless you are in your own business. If you are looking to be hired by others, type over top of your profile shot creates a barrier. Also does a great thing to elevate your brand if you're out on your own. Banner shot. Sometimes this seems a little distracting because John's in the banner shot too, but as a public speaker, not so difficult for me to get shots like this. I have quite a few of them, but you don't need to be in the banner. The purpose of the banner is to add focus to you or your industry or what you're taking on as a challenge. So there's a lot of ways to use it. The banner should create and enhance focus to you. Of course, your name is right there, and just below that is what I call the 150, 200 character resume. That is your positioning title on LinkedIn. How can I package what I do professionally? Now, most people make the mistake of putting their current or last employer in title. Really? That's the best thing you could put in that spot? I doubt it. So how do I use this spot? Author and career coach, resume, LinkedIn, and career branding guru, featured speaker at the New York Public Library, Department of Labor, CUNY, and many others. Quoted and seen in the Wall Street Journal, CNN, Forbes, Essence Magazine. Oh, look, I can contact that guy. Would you like to be contacted? Put your email address in the headline. Almost one of the only places LinkedIn does not promptly hide it from 99% of the people. So I refuse to be controlled. I can't be hidden. It's right there. Put it in there. Also notice 500 plus connections. Actually, I have about 12,000 or almost 12,000 connections, but 500 plus, you must get to 501. If you don't get to 501, you're not going to get to 500 plus. And when all of the top competitors are 500 plus, 500 plus, 500 plus, 170. Why is that person even in the list? Is their background real? How could they have all this background and they have 170 connections? Doesn't make sense. To manage perception, even a little bit of a story in the about section. So these things are tricky, but we have to think about. We have to think about the banner image. We have to think about the profile image. We have to think about the headline itself, which is a mini marketing message all about us. And what does that kind of set the stage before they've even seen or heard the rest of the story? As you go in and click those little blue pencils to do edits, this is a trial and error. Even when I'm building out a LinkedIn profile for my clients, and typically that means I've already built out their story on the resume, very versed in their background. Even me, it will take 3 or 4 hours of the actual build out to get to the right LinkedIn profile. Don't be afraid to trial and error and see what it looks like. Go back and do it again. Play with your banner images to come up with just the right piece. And ultimately that controls the perception of your brand. Now, this is the about or summary section. Now, it's about 2,000 characters of space. And the way I use it, it is 3 screens long. It's so much space. Hopefully, you've absorbed the first piece here. And that is there's no sentence structure whatsoever, except for that quote. Quote's a sentence. It has to be there. The rest of it, there's no sentence structure here. Take these media hits as an example. They're there to build instant credibility. But couldn't I have put those in much more succinctly? I could have. But it would have taken an extra second, 2 or 3, to glance and process and digest, conclude. There is no extra second, 2 or 3. This way they see it in the brain. They see it into the brain. White space, incredibly important. If you didn't hear it clearly earlier, I have a full pre-press background before ever going into recruiting. So I do understand line and type and spacing and everything else. As you work down the summary section, I then begin to group things so you can absorb parts of my background. Why not use the summary or about section to shortchange or cut off the normal evaluation process? The normal evaluation process is, let me look at 2 or 3 employers and titles for time, relevance, and skill. Let me look down to education, and I regurgitate however I feel about you. We shortchange that whole process by simply taking whatever pieces from our background story, whenever they happen, that are so good, and bring them right here as a collective story. Again, talking about speaking at the public library or Department of Labor, then I immediately list 8 more organizations that I speak at. But I just can't put that in all at once. It becomes this block of text. Oh, text. Oh, I hope there's pictures. Well, there are pictures, but don't miss the story. I can't have them miss NYC Service or Rainbow Push Wall Street Project or Goldman Sachs or Harvard Business School Club of New York City. Still more room left in the summary about section. I put in a few of my lectures. Clever way to get the topic keywords in there. And then I roll the dice on an entire paragraph right out of my book. But I do make it friendly by putting quotes around it, my name right after. Of course, I make a pitch for my full services as well. And then I begin to attach visual elements. Various parts of your profile can take visual elements. Those are PowerPoint files or video files or PDF files or video streams off YouTube or Vimeo or other things to think about. All of this can really allow them to begin to look over your shoulder to see what you're reading, doing shit, attending, or reacting to in the industry. Next on your profile is this white box, but for most people, it'll be empty. It'll say your post activity for the last 90 days. Nothing here. People go, is this person still alive? Did they pass away? I sure hope not. A lot of people have passed away. Did they pass away? They don't seem to be alive or functioning because they're not living and breathing their profession. By the way, living and breathing a profession does not require payment. There's no payment here today, and I'm certainly living and breathing my profession. So this is a way to get them to look over your shoulder at what you've been sharing, what's been drawing your attention. So whatever has happened recently will collect in this box. Whatever is at those end links will draw in visual elements. Your profile becomes alive just from sharing a few items. Further down the profile, you then finally get to what seems to be the resume part of the profile. But this doesn't look like a resume. Well, resumes don't work very well for most people. Why would I want to make it look like that? It's my first reaction. What you see again, I've taken away all of the sentence structure, or virtually all of the sentence structure. And then it is about how you begin to segment or parse ideas down the page. Let's take a look at a little bit more content. Now, by the way, you can spend some time on my LinkedIn profile yourself and absorb all of this. But here is a great example of how you begin to parse information into sections, grouping and simplification. And you realize even without the full spelled out story, you get it. The story communicates. So first part is the grouping and segmenting. The second part is to go in and add just a tiny bit of all caps. That helps give it a stronger framework for digesting information. If you don't use many all caps, not very likely to read very much at all. If you use too many all caps, not very likely to read very much at all. You have to find the balance that makes it easy and takes the work away from the reader. They can just look, absorb, look, absorb. Here's a few more traditional 2-line bullets so you can kind of see how that works there. And if you need a keyword block, and most people do not, this is how you do it. There's no special spot in LinkedIn, by the way, for a keyword block. So I put it in my first or current job, the SelfRecruiter listing. I simply skip a few spaces and I put keywords, run it all together. Now you've had some time to look at this. I don't know if you've actually read it. You may see Stephen Covey or Tony Robbins or Anthony Robbins. Never quite know how they're going to search him. Tori Johnson, 5 O'Clock Club, 92nd Street. Why? All these things I have absolutely nothing to do with. Why are they here? Because John thinks like a detective. These are all things that someone could search to find a person like John, but this is not my background. They could never find me searching these things. I can't get this into my organic story, so I pop it into a keyword block and I make sure I come up in those search results. Do you have certain companies that you always want to come up next to? Certain industry champions that you always would like to be seen near? I think you know how to do it now. Very clever way. Understand every time you're doing this, it's trial and error. What looks good in the adjustment interface may not look as good once you save it. You have to go back and forth and keep tweaking it until it's perfect. Again, individual jobs, add some visual elements. Sure, I can get a lot of visual elements pretty easily. Actually, most of my clients can too, even though they've not done it before. I simply say, why don't you collect every single picture that has ever touched your work life? Did you hear how I said that? That's the good picture, the bad picture, the in focus, the out of focus. That's my dirty desk. I'm not even in that picture. All of those pictures. It's not that we're going to use all of those pictures, but this example, I had a client share a folder of 50 pictures to me. At the same time, they were apologizing. I'm so sorry about this. I'm like, no, are you kidding? How could I tell you what I could create until I see what you have? So we didn't put up 50 pictures. This is not about letting this become Facebook. It's about balancing the story. We cherry picked 4 or 5 images that convey just the right qualities we want it to lift that career brand. A little bit of type over top of the picture pretty easily, either in PowerPoint or Keynote. Export it as a nice image. You can just save that and it looks quite professional. That begins to shift the focus. You don't have to be in these pictures, by the way. It'd be nice if you're in 1 or 2 of them, but you don't have to be. A little bit earlier in the career, this is the same thing as a keyword block, really. National recruiting firm with 100 plus offices. We did manufacturing, engineering, supply chain, logistics, automotive, chemical, energy, on and on and on and on. But really, it's just a clever way to get more keywords. But now think about the storytelling technique here. If you worked in any one of these industries and your career brand needed help being elevated across resume, LinkedIn profile, or you needed help even in coaching for the next interview, guess who would come right up based on how I told the story? You need to think about if there's an advantage to you telling this story. Not using this on the resume, of course. You have a single sheet of paper on the resume. That needs to be about you. But over here, you have much more real estate to tell a story. Give them a little spotlight. It can reflect back upon you. Same technique from much earlier, associated clients. Now, that could get you in trouble. Let's be careful of those trade secret agreements. Let's be careful of those non-disclosures. I had the right to share every single software client I worked with. I shared every single one. Imagine you worked at any one of these software clients and your career brand needed help being elevated, or your resume or your LinkedIn profile didn't sing your praises the way it should. Or maybe your last interview didn't go as well as it should have and you need help. Guess who would come right up based on how you might do the search and how I told story? Look what's just below this. Invite me, all invites accepted, open networker, and Lion. Would you like endless new connections forever? I'd be connected to every person on the planet if I could, because it gives me access to incredible data that I could use in ways I haven't even imagined yet. Positive ways, by the way. So my gosh, why don't you simply, you don't have to write it down. Why don't you simply copy this out of my profile, paste it into yours? This is also, by the way, how we get to 500 plus. We'll show you that coming up as well. Publications module, I use that. I have my book in it. I have a few articles. Strategic Finance Magazine, a corporate accounting. Blah, blah. I don't know why those magazines love me so much. I do work with a lot of Wall Street clients with financial background. That's not my background, but my background is how you elevate brand. Works across whatever industry we're looking at. Of course, got featured in Essence Magazine, had to put that in here. But even if you have none of that stuff, could you write 3 or 4 articles, page and a half, no one actually wants to read? Somehow those articles surround what you do professionally. Kind of like this. If I said, oh, could you talk to my kid? They kind of like to come down your career track because you give them some pearls of wisdom, some advice. Oh yeah, that wise mentoring tone is probably the right direction for what we're after here. You could simply stick those on any free blog out there. There's like a million of them. Use the publication module to showcase it. And even if they never click through to go read them, it has a tremendous branding effect. You as a thought leader. Anybody here volunteer? I used to love to do that in front of live audience. I'm in front of live audience at a distance over the internet now, but people would go, oh, I volunteer. And I'm like, oh. Right after they enthusiastically put their hand up, I dismiss it because I realize it's volunteering. It's not real. Really? I'm volunteering here today. I guarantee it's real. But we have a baggage problem. So for myself nor for my clients, I won't use the volunteer module. I use the organizations module. It has the exact same effect and benefit with none of the dismissive baggage. Oh, this is how you align yourself. This is how you give back. Paid or unpaid can all go in here. Don't be frightened off by the dates. I put dates in here for time relevance of skill as a public speaker, but dates are certainly not required. You put them in here if you like. And understand this is a space that can have a lot of different advantages. This NYU Wasserman Center, as an example, is that same technique used a slightly different way. They invited me in for a little bit of a roundtable discussion, Q&A. We're going to have a moderator. I'm like, oh, sure. Sounds great to me. Let's try it. And I'm prepping for it. And I'm looking up Vincent and Jessica and John Ladinsky. And suddenly I get to John Ladinsky. I'm like, oh, there's so many followers, more than I had. So jealous. I'm shy and introverted, but I'm very competitive. I want to win still. But I'm thinking of things differently. You're probably thinking, oh, John wants to get as many followers or more than John Ladinsky. Well, yes, but not really. I mean, I'm thinking of, I already have my own followers. I'd like to get John Ladinsky's followers. So understand how to share kudos, share spotlight, share credit. And by giving these folks spotlight and credit, you can bet every single time someone pulls up John Ladinsky, John Crant comes right up, or Vincent, or Jessica, or NYU Wasserman Center. So think about storytelling technique and what it brings back to you. Keyword skills endorsement module. This is 50 words or phrases all about you. I sure hope you put in all 50. By the way, no one's an expert at 50 items. That's not the criteria. You need to get those items in there so that those things become a checkbox list tool on the back end to employers. Oh, I need someone that's had exposure to this and this and this. So yes, put what you're amazing at, but also put in everything you've ever touched, no matter how cursory. If you've had exposure to it, that can make the list. The 50 most valuable things you've ever mastered or had exposure to stay on the list at all times. That becomes part of who you are as a brand. Down at the bottom of your LinkedIn profile, depending on how much content you put in, LinkedIn will reorganize it just like you see here so that your content can be digested in multiple ways. As much content as you put in, understand there is a way to easily expand this content if we like to see as much as we'd like. We can just click in and put in all the extra content. And by the way, it all remains keyword searchable. LinkedIn then just truncates it nicely so it's very short, succinct, not to scare anybody away, but they'll click open and dig in when they have interest. Of course, written recommendations. In a perfect world, I'd like 4, 5, or 6 of these things. I think I have 52, 53, 54 of them up here, something like that. Biggest thing to understand is there's not a single edit. Now, the moment you start reading these, you'll get that. You'll get that because your head will want to explode. You're going to see typos all over the place, grammar all over the place. Oh my gosh, didn't John see this? Of course I did. That's something I learned as a recruiter, doing reference checks. First off, half the companies I ever worked with would never do a reference check under any circumstance whatsoever. I found it completely shocking when you're talking about the money that's involved. Really? No reference checks? Well, first off, you cherry picked these 3 people. Shame on you if they don't say something good about you. You don't even deserve this job. So most of those companies understand it's really a dog and pony show, nonsense. The other half of the companies, they check them all, even if they didn't have full belief in it. And, I would learn this because HR might call me and say, hey, we need the references for Jack Smith. We'd like to consider making an offer. And I'd go, absolutely. I'll get them right over to you. And I employ selective hearing. What I actually heard was, Could you send over the completed references and maybe we can get an offer out this afternoon? Great idea. Absolutely. But I never clarify that. I simply hang up the phone, and the next hour or two, I will yank those people out of a meeting on their cell phone if I have to get that reference. And no hanky-panky. Here's my 10 questions. I will capture verbatim what they say, which is very scary. If you've ever captured verbatim that type of conversation, tangential thought here, back over here, never circles back. Whole thing in quotes. Here's the name, here's the title, here's the phone number, here's the email. First time my boss saw it, absolutely horrified. Oh, I hope you're going to clean that up a little bit. I'm like, no, that's the point. I'm not actually touching it. Take the full minute and read it. And the hair on the back of your neck is standing up. It's so real. Same thing is here. Do not change people's words, verbiage, everything else. Understand that's where the power comes from. Also, don't stab yourself in the foot by telling them what to write. Oh, could you write about these 3 things? Okay, your friend's going to write about those 3 things, something dull and uninspired. And they're never going to say these 5 dazzling things they would have said because you stuck a flashlight in their eye, and now they can't. Here's how you ask for it, by the way. Gosh, I'd welcome a written recommendation through LinkedIn. Oh, what should I write about? As little or as much as you'd like to say, whatever you, here it is, genuinely feel. I'm sure it'll be fine. And I am sure it'll be fine because it can never go live unless you approve it. Roll the dice and people will surprise you in very, very good ways. You're seeing them right now up on screen as I'm talking. Groups, you can join. Well, I don't even know how many. Used to be 50. Now it seems to be mostly unlimited. Every single group you join, every member of that group is now in your searchable pool. If you haven't exploited group membership, go join all the right groups so that when you share something, it can land on those desktops. That's how it works. Follow some interesting people. Look at that. I'm following Tony Robbins, mostly so I can give a little push off stage. Get a little long in the tooth there, just to make some space for the rest of us. Talk about how we get to 500 plus. How can you be perceived as a mover and shaker? Finger on the pulse. You're the guy or gal that I have to hire, and you must have amazing resources right in your contact file. And I don't think anybody else has this. We're going to go up to this unified search box at the top of the page. Inside, we're going to search inside of quotations, invite me. I already started earlier on the profile. Run down all 10 tabs, whatever they give you. Invite every single person that you can without thought. Doesn't matter. Just invite as fast as you can. It says invite me right in the profile. All invites accepted. We do it again. Another list. They're all telling you, no judgments, all invites accepted. Invite every single one of them. It doesn't matter. You're after the network behind them. Go back and do it again. This time in quotes, open networker. Same thing. Run through them all. Invite them all. Last one doesn't actually need quotes. It's a lion, like lion stands for LinkedIn Open Networker. Okay, a few that don't belong, like I'm at Lion Apparel. There we go. Or I'm at Food Lion, or I'm at the Lion team of the real estate company. But most of them are very high volume networkers. On this part, you could start with 0 today. Do this exercise I just showed you. And what is today? Today is Tuesday. So by Friday, Monday at the latest, by Friday, if you do that today, you'll be at 501, even starting with 0 today. So let's understand how to get that part going and move that obstacle out of your way. Now, last piece for today. How is it that I'm going to reach any decision maker that I might want to reach, whether that's the boss or boss's boss or boss's boss's boss? Top-down selling. Let's start further up. Oh, I know it's scary, but those people aren't afraid of you. They think of you as a strategic asset. They will introduce you right down the food chain. And when you get introduced down the food chain, you always get the interview. Or you might want to find a peer subordinate or anybody else. This is how you do it. We go to this same unified search box we were just in. In this example, I'm searching Informatica, big database middleware company. Yep, they're going to give me a drop-down list. Don't click on that drop-down list. That's a trip down the rabbit hole. Don't do it. Just hit enter. You get this nice secondary sorting process. Yes, I am looking for the people that work in Informatica, but as long as I'm here, there must be other companies that I'm forgetting or not thinking about. So let's just go, show me the companies that come up under Informatica. 34,000 companies. Okay, yeah, all in the window here are called Informatica. But once you get down past Informatica, who are the rest of these? I can tell you, this used to be my field. Everybody on this list down there are system integrators. They either resell or install Informatica software. If I am statistically right to work for Informatica, I am very likely statistically right to work for a great number of these companies. This is another method, by the way, to create perfect lists of companies that might like to hire you. But then I have to find the people. Go back over, show me the people. 2.5 million. Ooh. Be cold and in the ground before I get through that list. Let me think. I have it. Show me the ones just in the US, even on the free version of LinkedIn. And you know what? I don't need 3 years ago Informatica. Currently working for Informatica, currently in the US and really on the Informatica team right now. What do I get? Let's see. 1,615 results. Much better. But I can't look at 1,600 results either. A little more brain power because it's problem solving. So let's see. Let's go in. Even on the free version, simple VP. Look at that. Simple VP. Really US, really Informatica. Let's see. 75 VPs. A lot of chiefs at that company. And maybe it's a director that's going to hire me. Maybe it's a director. Really US, really Informatica. What do I get? 228 directors. Going the wrong direction. Oh, I have it because it's problem solving. Through this exercise, I've realized it's a sales director. And how about right down to New York City, even on the free version? What do I get? Oh, three. Ultimately, what I'm looking for are 3 to 5 individuals. I would have opened 25 to 30 people's profiles, up, down, left and right. In the midst of opening all those profiles, and then, of course, asking them to connect with me, use a simple message that says, you don't know me. I'm professionally appropriate. A little stroke to the ego. It says, I like to connect with other professionals in our niche or niche, depending how we like to say that. And of course, love to add you to my professional network on LinkedIn. So there's all those things. Copy, paste forevermore. That's 3 people. But if I could get 3 to 5 people, if I could get 5 people, my odds go up. So you know what? Maybe there's a sales VP in addition to a sales director in the New York City area, currently working for Informatica. Oh, 2 more. I love it. Along the way, you're going to be frustrated because sometimes they're going to give you the send in mail. Please understand before you send it what in mail is, which is spam. Literal definition of spam. It is paid email. It may not seem like spam to you, but I can tell you my inbox is just jam-packed with well over 1,000 unopened messages in my LinkedIn box, clogging the entire system. Oh, I'm missing some good messages too. The bulk of it is spam. Don't send in mail. I do want to connect with Nick here. Just load his profile. They'll frustrate you again, but click the ... and you realize, oh, they just hit that connect button here over behind the tree. They'll never see it back here. They can't really stop you from connecting. That's their business model. Oh, there's that message. You're right. One time ever, copy and paste forevermore. It's a lot of my lectures. Take the first step, whatever your next step is. Improve your career branding. Really showcase yourself at the top of your game, even if it's beyond your comfort zone. You have earned this background and you have to put it out and show it and sell yourself for that next role. Thank you guys for coming in today. I really appreciate it. This is building your career brand with LinkedIn and how to use it for your job search. A very, very special lecture coming up on Friday. I hope you don't miss it. That is my Ask SelfRecruiter live streaming Q&A. That's at 11 a.m. this Friday, as I'm going to try to be doing most Fridays. So don't hesitate to send in your questions. If you'd like your question included, just send it to ask@selfrecruiter.com. That's ask@selfrecruiter.com. You can send in your messages and questions. Best ones will all be included. And look over my LinkedIn channel, on my YouTube channel, on my Facebook. Hope you like, subscribe, ring the bell, share with your friends, all that fun stuff. And we'll see you a little bit later in the week. Take care.